Hi, my group, Lisbeth, Ruby, Alexandra, Bianca, and I, will be doing our presentation on teens and substance abuse. Upon completing this presentation, students will be able to learn to identify 3 major substances abused by teens, also be able to list 4 reasons why teens abuse substances, and be able to identify the warning signs of substance abuse.
The Healthy People Organization addresses 21 particular objectives in relation to substance abuse. The ones that pertain to this specific population, which would be teens, are as followed. SA2 aims to increase the proportion of adolescents never using substances. SA3 aims to increase the proportion of adolescents who disapprove of substances. SA4 aims to increase the proportion of adolescents who perceive great risk associated with substance abuse. SA18 aims to reduce steroid use among adolescents. And finally, SA21 aims to reduce the proportion of adolescents who use inhalants. Before beginning to understand the importance of all of the data that's going to be presented, it's important to understand some of the terms that we are going to be covering. Teenagers is in relation to our population of this presentation, and it is defined by Oxford Dictionary as a person who is aged between 13 and 19 years. Furthermore, addiction is defined as the physical or mental dependence on a particular substance. Abuse is defined as the misuse or the use of a substance to a bad effect or a bad purpose. Next, we're going to be talking about drugs, and drugs are defined as a medicine or other substance which has a physiological effect when ingested or otherwise introduced into the body, such as marijuana, nicotine, steroids, etc. And finally, there are illegal substances, which encompass drugs, but it is defined as a intoxicating, stimulating, or narcotic, chemical, or drug contrary by law. So this would include drugs that are illegal, such as cocaine, heroin, meth, etc.
I'll start off by defining what cultural competence is. It's basically the ability to understand, communicate, and effectively interact with people across cultures. So there are issues within cultural competence because of diversity and not knowing others' values and cultures, and this may affect how you're able to understand and communicate to others across certain issues, specifically teens and substance abuse. So we found that issues with cultural competence pertain to these 3 factors the most, which would be influenced by peers, socioeconomic status, and healthcare. So teens with lower self-esteem fall into peer pressure because they want to be able to fit into certain groups they see either on school campus, even outside of school. And if they see that by doing substances, they'll be able to fit in, that's what they'll do in order to be cool, to say. Socioeconomic status is another cultural competence issue because of the measures of inequality that come with being in the lower income status. So it's seen in teens raised in lower income areas because a lot of parents lack information on substance abuse because they didn't get the proper education on it, so they don't know how to really talk to their children about it. And also stress can be a big factor as to why this is an issue in socioeconomic status, because stress from living in lower income areas may push teens to start using substances. So they see their parents stressing because they're paying bills. Sometimes even these teens have to grow up a little faster and get their own jobs, so they're stressed about school and work and being able to maintain their childhood still. As for healthcare, a bunch of teens might be scared to seek help because they fear of getting in trouble by anyone in the facility reporting it. Also, not knowing who to talk to because they might be seen as bad kids for abusing substances.
So now I'll be talking about the statistics surrounding teens who engage in substance abuse. Out of all the drugs available, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, in 2019, alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco are substances that are most commonly used by adolescents. This could be due to availability. Maybe their guardian keeps alcohol in the house or smokes cigarettes, or maybe their friends engage in smoking marijuana. However, the substances abused do vary by age group. The National Institute on Drug Abuse in 2014 concluded that younger adolescents prefer inhalants, such as glue, pens like Sharpies, and household cleaners, in comparison to older adolescents who prefer synthetic marijuana and medications like Vicodin or Adderall. Adderall, for example, is considered a study drug. Since high school can be stressful, teens may turn to drugs to help them study, and in turn, they end up becoming dependent. From Get Smart About Drugs, teens who abuse drugs not only have lower grades, but they also miss school a lot more and are more likely to drop out of school in comparison to a student that doesn't abuse drugs. Squelgila, Jacobus, and Tappert in 2009 mentions that substance use in adolescence leads to abnormalities in brain functioning. This time period is critical for brain growth, and the use of substances have proven to be very damaging. It can decrease cognitive functioning, can reduce the volume of important brain structures, and decrease neurocognitive performance. There has been a sudden increase in vaping over the past few years. It's unfortunate because it's still new enough that there isn't much data that shows how bad vaping can be. The graph from the National Institute on Drug Abuse shows by grade level and what type of vape is used by adolescents in school. Genetics can also play a role in substance abuse among teens. According to the American Addiction Center in 2019, 25% of American teens grow up in homes where at least one parent abuses some sort of drug. Scholastic states that there's a 40 to 60% likelihood of the child themselves developing an addiction, so it's important that the parents talk to their children and warn them of what could come. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, substance abuse among high schoolers is on a decline for the majority of drugs. They surveyed high schoolers from the year 2015 and then did it again in 2017. And for the most part, drug use is on the decline. For example, marijuana use in 2015, the total between males and females was 39%, and in 2017 it was 36%. The decrease may not seem severe, but that's how it is for most drugs they surveyed for. But any decrease is important in keeping teens healthy and on the right track in both development and life.
There are specific factors that may increase the probability of teens abusing substances. Some of these may include peer pressure. There is either positive or negative peer pressure. When it comes to substance abuse in teens, it tends to be negative, such as a friend asking them to try alcohol, skip school to try a cigarette, among many more. Another type of factor is stress. When it comes to teenagers, one of the biggest factors in stress tends to be school. This is because they have to balance school and a social life, which makes it easier to use drugs as a form of entertainment and as a de-stressor. Another type of stress factor would be financial stress, whether it is dealing with a job during school or whether it is your family having financial difficulties. Another factor in teenage substance abuse are family relationships. These are essential since those who lack a healthy family or those who have families where substance abuse is likely used, they are more likely to engage in substance abuse and follow their parents' path. This relates to genetics, which is another concern in teenage substance abuse, which means that teens and children are most likely to inherit an addictive personality if their parents tend to abuse substances, which makes it easier for them to follow the path and makes it difficult to continue this. As well, another very essential concern when it comes to substance abuse is that not only is this healthy, risky behavior being used, they as well tend to engage in other risky behaviors such as having unprotected sex, alcohol consumption, or driving recklessly while under the influence of drugs, among many more. Finally, substance abuse may as well lead to health concerns in the future, such as high blood pressure, heart disease, sleep-gene disorders, among many more, which will be higher compared to those teenagers who did not abuse substances.
According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, there are various interventions at the behavioral level for teens struggling with substance abuse. They believe that the intervention at the behavioral level helps teens actively involve themselves in their recovery and build up their ability to stay off drugs. This type of intervention may involve therapists giving incentives to teens to remain abstinent, change behaviors or attitudes related to drug abuse, and help families strengthen communication and build up life skills to combat certain triggers. Some of the behavioral and treatments include Adolescent Community Reinforcement Approach, or ACRA. This helps teens understand and maintain abstinence from drugs by replacing influences of drug abuse with healthier ones such as educational, family, social, or vocational reinforcers. After an initial assessment, a therapist will choose from 17 ACRA procedures to address problem solving, coping, and communication skills. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is based on the theory that learning processes play a critical role on the development of problem behaviors such as drug abuse. An important part of CBT is helping participants create effective coping mechanisms for the issues they may encounter. While teens participate in the program, they explore positive and negative consequences of drug use. Participants learn to regulate their thoughts and emotions and recognize thought processes that lead to triggers. CBT can be held in one-on-one and group sessions. Contingency management, or CM, focuses on reinforcements for lower drug use. The goal of CM intervention is to diminish the influence of drug-related reinforcements and replace it with healthy reinforcements, like prizes or cash for movies, snacks, and other personal goods. Contingency management intervention usually combined with psychosocial treatment. Motivational Enhancement Therapy, or MET, is based on an approach called motivational interviewing, which normally includes a primary assessment of the teen's motivation to engage in treatment, accompanied by 1 to 3 one-on-one sessions in which a therapist helps the participant grow a desire to participate in treatment by offering non-confrontational feedback. This intervention typically is not used as a standalone treatment. The 12-step facilitation therapy is an intervention intended to facilitate the transition to a 12-step program like Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, and Narcotics Anonymous, NA. Facilitation therapy is for those adolescents with deep drug abuse problems.